After one last, heartbreaking kiss, Jung-hyuk finally succeeds in sending Seri back to South Korea. He lets her go even though it hurts. She walks away with tears in her eyes, knowing he stayed behind to protect her. A short time later, she shows up at the Seri's Choice building, stunning all of her employees by being alive, and offering a huge sale on all of her products for the first time in the history of the company. Her workers are shocked to see her. Some thought she was gone forever. The sale is her way of starting fresh and thanking everyone for not giving up. It happens to be the day when the board of directors will be voting on whether to make Sang-ah, Seri's sister-in-law, the new CEO of Seri's Choice. The office feels tense. People are talking quietly, unsure what will happen. As Seri walks toward the meeting room, she runs into Secretary Hong, who bursts into tears when he sees her alive and safe. He hugs her tightly, and she finally lets herself smile a little. She tries to look serious, but the hug feels warm. For a moment, she feels there are people who truly care about her. Just as the board members are all voting to give the position to Sang-ah, and she is smiling proudly, Seri walks into the room and shocks everyone. The room goes quiet. Everyone stares, too surprised to speak. She tells the board members to go back to work, then looks at Sang-ah and says she always knew she was in a hurry and wanted too much. Sang-ah's smile disappears. The moment she thought she had won is suddenly over. At the demilitarized zone, the teammates are back to their regular patrol schedule. The days feel normal again, but something is missing. But they're worried about Jung-hyuk, who hasn't been eating or sleeping well since Seri left. He moves through the day quietly, keeping to himself. His eyes look tired, and he barely touches his food. He spends time thinking about his last day with Seri, and after dark, he's approached by a very nervous Manbok. Manbok walks slowly toward him, unsure if he should speak, but knowing he has to. They go somewhere private to talk, where Manbok tells Jung-hyuk that he spent his whole life listening to others and never gets to talk about himself. He looks down as he speaks, his voice soft. It's not easy for him to share. But he says he once met someone who listened to him, and he shows Jung-hyuk the wallet his friend gave him as a birthday gift. Inside is a note wishing Manbok a happy birthday, and signed by Muhyuk, Jung-hyuk's brother. Jung-hyuk's eyes widen. He holds the note gently, like it's something precious. Flash back to 10 years ago, when the swine flu was spreading through the area. Manbok's son, Wupil, was a baby at the time and became very sick, but the hospital had no medicine. Muhyuk had shown up at Manbok's house with medicine and a nurse and saved Wupil's life. Manbok remembers the moment clearly, the relief, the tears, the kindness he didn't expect. Even though Manbok couldn't repay him, Muhyuk took the little money Manbok offered as a way of accepting his thanks. It was more than just money, it was respect. It meant Muhyuk understood his heart. Very soon after that, Manbok had been ordered by Chul-kang to secretly listen to Muhyuk's conversations. Manbok had refused at first. He didn't want to betray the man who had saved his son. But his mother had been arrested for trying to cross the border, and Chul-kang had promised to free her if Manbok obeyed. Feeling trapped and helpless, Manbok gave in. He thought he had no choice. While listening, he heard Muhyuk talking about Chul-kang's crimes and how he planned to report them to the trial bureau in Pyongyang. Muhyuk had one memory chip with the evidence to take with him and another hidden inside his watch. He was ready to risk everything to do the right thing. It had been Manbok's job to tell Chulkang where Muhyuk was so Chulkang could send trucks to kill him. Manbok had done it with shaking hands and a sick feeling in his chest. When he got home later, his wife gave him a birthday gift Muhyuk had left for him, with a note inside and the money returned, asking him to share a drink when he got back from Pyongyang. Manbok had read the letter and broken down, crying loudly for the only friend he had ever known. The guilt hit him all at once. Now, Manbok tells Junghyuk that he always told himself he had no choice, but it never made him feel better. He looks down, crying hard, unable to hold it in anymore. He says he misses Muhyuk and then gets on his knees, saying he wants to pay for what he did. His voice shakes as he begs for forgiveness. He asks Junghyuk to take care of his family if anything happens to him, and he hands over Muhyuk's watch and a recording from the night Muhyuk died. Junghyuk takes them silently, feeling the weight of his brother's loss more deeply than ever. Junghyuk listens to Muhyuk talk about how proud he is of his brother's piano ability, and how much he was looking forward to hearing the song Junghyuk wrote for him. His brother's voice is full of warmth and love. It feels like he's right there. Junghyuk breaks down as he hears the truck crash, sobbing over and over that he's sorry. He covers his face with his hands, his whole body shaking. The sound of the crash stays with him, and the guilt is too much to carry. In the morning, Wolsuk finds a letter from Seri in her salt crock, which explains why she had to lie about her real identity and thanks them for being her friends. She reads the letter slowly, tears filling her eyes. The words are simple, but full of meaning. The village wives are shocked to learn that Samsuk is actually the famous CEO of Seri's Choice, and it's obvious they miss her a lot. They sit together, quiet for a moment. The house feels emptier without her laughter and her bright presence. When Seri has been back for 2 weeks, she goes to her father's house for a family dinner. She walks in calmly, ready to face her family again. Hayeji gushes over her, and Seri clasps Hayeji's hands and reclaims the ring that Hayeji swiped from her dressing room. She takes it back without a word, keeping her expression calm. Hayeji immediately tattles on Seri's stepmother for letting them into Seri's apartment. The room goes quiet. No one expected the truth to come out so quickly. Hurt, Seri confronts her stepmother, who, along with Sangha, bought most of her company's stocks when the price fell after the news of Seri's death. Seri's voice is calm but firm, showing how much she's been hurt inside. She warns her stepmother that the company belongs to her, not her stepmother's children. She says sadly that her stepmother must have been happy Seri was thought to be dead, and she apologizes for disappointing her. There is pain in her eyes as she speaks, but also a quiet strength. Stepmom leaves dinner early, saying she feels sick. Seri watches her go, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. Seri pretends she has lost her memory and lets her family believe she's been in the hospital since her accident, though she says she remembers clearly up to when their father chose her to lead the company. It's a way to keep her family guessing and protect herself. Back at home in her fancy apartment, Seri enjoys the comforts of her life in South Korea, steady electricity, hot water, and all the little things she missed. She smiles a little as she rededicates herself to living like the young, rich woman she is supposed to be. But at one moment, she starts to say something to Junghyuk, and then remembers he's not there. The happiness suddenly fades, and she feels alone again. Meanwhile, Junghyuk takes the microchip out of Muhyuk's watch and opens the report his brother had made about Chulkang. His hands shake a little as he reads. The report is full of terrible things that make his heart race. After looking it over, he sends the report to his father. He knows this is important and could change everything. Seung-joon is about to meet with CEO Jeon when some serious-looking government men stop him. They say there's been a report about him and want to check who he really is. Seung-joon feels nervous, unsure what will happen next. Luckily, they meet Dan, who quickly calls him Alberto and says she was just about to call him. Her uncle, Colonel Go, steps in and says if Dan trusts Seung-joon, then he must be okay. Seung-joon breathes a little easier, thankful for Dan's help. Later, Seung-joon gets upset when Dan says she wasn't really going to call him, even though he's done a lot of favors for her, like carrying her home when she was drunk. He feels a little hurt and confused. He reminds her that she even invited him to sleep over, but Dan reacts with shocked surprise, insisting she never said that. Their playful argument hides a deeper connection between them, even if they don't say it out loud. Seung-joon asks if Dan and Jung-hyuk are still planning to get married since he's in the demilitarized zone. He sounds curious but also a little unsure. Dan demands to know where he heard that, because it wasn't from her. She looks serious, like this is a secret she didn't want shared. Seung-joon admits that after dropping her off at home that night, he got a call from Jung-hyuk. Seung-joon honestly told Jung-hyuk that Seri's brothers didn't really want her back because she was seen as a threat to their work. He had suggested keeping her in North Korea. He wanted to be practical and keep things safe. But Jung-hyuk argued that Seri belongs in South Korea and wanted to go home. He asked Seung-joon to help. Seung-joon protested that he barely knows Seri, since she broke off their engagement just weeks before the wedding. He didn't want to get involved, but somehow, he found himself helping anyway. Now we see why nobody was seen going in or out of Director Ri's house the night Seri and Jung-hyuk left. Seung-joon distracted the security guard by pretending to be lost, letting Jung-hyuk and Seri slip away quietly on foot. It was a small act, but it made all the difference. Seung-joon had driven them back toward the demilitarized zone, pouting the whole way because Seri thanked him but also because she had pawned the expensive ring he gave her to buy Jung-hyuk a gift. Eventually, Seung-joon handed the fugitives off to Kwangbum, and he tells Dan that he doesn't know what happened to them after that. There is a quiet sadness in his voice as he speaks, like he wishes he knew more. Dan is upset when she learns that Jung-hyuk volunteered to return to the demilitarized zone just for Seri. Seung-joon says he helped them partly so stop chasing after her first love. He speaks gently, which is unusual for him, trying to be kind even as he is honest. Dan says it won't work, but Seung-joon replies that when the man you love risks his life for another woman, it's over. He adds that holding on to something even she thinks is sad is not love, it's obsession. Director reacts on the information Jung-hyuk sent him. Soon, Chul Kang is put on trial for his crimes. He faces charges for 6 murders disguised as accidents, bribery, selling stolen goods, and drug trafficking. Justice is finally starting to happen. Chul Kang stays silent and angry until Jung-hyuk testifies that the evidence came from his late brother, who was one of Chul Kang's victims. Jung-hyuk's voice is steady but full of pain as he speaks about his brother. Chul Kang then says Jung-hyuk is lying and that the accidents were just accidents. Jung-hyuk shows the judge a piece of special ceramic armor material he took from the engineer brigade, and says this proves Chulkang was smuggling it into the country. The judge looks carefully at the evidence, understanding its importance. Chulkang starts talking about Seri and how Junghyuk helped her come home, but now he sounds like a madman, and the judge stops listening. The judge finds Chulkang guilty on all charges and sentences him to life in prison with hard labor and no chance to appeal. Chulkang suddenly lunges at Junghyuk, gasping that he missed something important, and because of that, Seri will die. Worried, Junghyuk goes through all Mohyuk's evidence again, searching for what he missed. He finds a difference between the amount of smuggled materials and the ceramic armor taken by the police, which means there must be a second factory still making armor. His heart sinks knowing the danger is not over. Meanwhile, another armored truck leaves this secret factory to stop Chulkang's prison transport. The transport truck is forced into a tunnel, the guards are killed, and Chulkang is rescued. Junghyuk's worst fears are coming true. The next day, Junghyuk finds an envelope on his desk. Inside is a copy of the old article announcing Seri's death. It feels like a cold warning, sending a chill through him. Then a call from Chulkang confirms Junghyuk's worst fear: Chulkang is alive and coming after Seri. Junghyuk swears on his brother's life that he will catch Chulkang. His voice is filled with fierce determination and pain. Secretary Hong tells Sujin, who looks healthier now that Seri is back and he's less worried about a big insurance payout, that he's worried about Seri since her return. He says Seri used to say, "You can sleep when you die," but now she tells him to take breaks. She had even taken him to the border and cried when he said he didn't see anyone on the mountain. He is not able to understand the current Seri. While Manbok is working, he is suddenly called into a dark room. At the same time, Junghyuk's teammates are stopped at gunpoint during their patrol by soldiers. Danger is closing in from all sides. Seri leaves work late and doesn't notice Chulkang watching her in the parking garage, disguised in a security uniform. A quiet fear lingers, though she doesn't know it yet. At home, she can't sleep and is out of sleeping pills, so she goes for a walk. As she walks the streets, she wonders to herself, "I wonder which one is love, hoping that you're worrying about me like I am for you and pining for me like I am for you, or is it wishing that you won't be worried about me, and that you'll forget about me and all the moments we've shared? Is that love? Or is it love that I'm willing to go through everything from the very beginning just so that I can meet you again?" Her thoughts are heavy, filled with longing and confusion about what love truly means. Ahead of Seri, the crowd parts, and she blinks to see Junghyuk standing there. Her heart skips a beat, unable to believe her eyes. When he sees her, his expression softens, the way it always does when he looks at her. There is a quiet warmth in his eyes, full of relief and love. It begins to snow, and Junghyuk walks closer to Seri. He says he has been searching for her everywhere because she only told him her neighborhood, not her exact address. His voice is gentle but full of hope. Seri just stares, unable to believe that Junghyuk is really in Seoul, standing right in front of her. For a moment, the world feels still, and everything she wished for feels true. Additional scene. The teammates are taken to an old, empty building, where Manbok is already waiting, looking nervous. A shadowy figure comes closer, it's Director Ri. His face is serious but soft, like a worried father. He tells them that Junghyuk has gone south, and asks them not just as officers but as a father to bring Junghyuk back home. They travel south with the military track team, who are competing in the Military World Games. The teammates feel the weight of the mission. They have only 2 weeks before the track team goes back, and if they fail, they're on their own. They stop at a convenience store to eat ramyun, amazed by all the different kinds. Jomok picks jajangmyeon because he's seen it in dramas and wants to try it. Chisu guesses there must be so much ramyun because the south doesn't have enough rice, only for Manbok to point to a whole shelf full of instant rice. They laugh quietly, a small moment of relief. After eating, they walk through busy city streets, trying to act normal but failing. Suddenly, someone appears behind them and orders them to relax and keep moving. Eventually, they reach a quieter place and stop when a voice asks how long they've been there. Chisu answers honestly, they are here to bring someone home. Manbok asks who they're talking to, and the man steps forward. It's Dong-gu. He looks tired but calm, waiting for instructions that never came. Suddenly, Dong-gu's boss comes out, shouting at him for not making his delivery. Dong-gu changes completely, acting silly and making goofy faces. He mumbles he's going right now. When he turns back to the team, he looks embarrassed. It's clear this is his way to stay safe. He gives the team a gift, his delivery job. It pays well, comes with free food, and will help them blend in. He wishes them luck, then walks away in that silly way, turning back to salute them before running off with a smile. The team watches him go, feeling a mix of hope and sadness.